All right, there we go. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to the Gin and Tonic Show. It's another Friday evening. It is the 31st of August, and we are going to be talking about Islam and a very troubled relationship Islam and the ex Muslims, that is. Now, what we're going to do, as usual, is we are going to talk about some crazy comments. We're going to talk about some other topics. I have got Veedu Vidz on the back burner. He is on his way. He is not quite there yet. So what we're going to do is make do with what we have for the time being. So I'm hoping that he's going to make it as quickly as possible. I've got Abdel Aziz and we've got some other people. I'm not sure if we're going to have time because Fruitful has asked if he can come on. But I think this topic is, I don't know, we'll keep it for another, well, I think for another show. Or maybe today. We never know what is going to happen today. Do we? Okay, what we're going to do today is we're going to take a look at the where is the cameraman? I need to reverse everything a bit before we go because what I want to do is load the, here we go, mirror everything, and here we go. Um this is a comment which I think I mentioned earlier, where I said, okay, this is by Kenny, our favorite own Imam, Kenny Boma. And this is where he says to me that I have a hateful attitude. Okay, all I'm doing is I'm looking at Islam and I'm citing, quoting, or whatever, the Quran and Hadiths, and this is what he calls hateful. And I only attack Islam week in and week out. I don't attack Islam as such. I criticize bad ideas in Islam. But I don't know why this is hateful and why this is attacking if I criticize something. I hate I'm a hate mongering Islamophobe. Now, in my eyes, I don't know about you guys, as soon as I hear Islamophobe, I switch off because Islam, we all know, is the ideology, is a political ideology, and then something spiritual as well. And a phobia is a malfunctioning of the brain. So, why would Islam be a malfunctioning of the brain, according to Kenny Boma? I don't know. I don't understand. And he says you spend a great deal of time addressing a God that you say don't believe exists. Actually, I don't. I spend Friday evenings talking about Islam. I don't spend a great deal of time during the week considering, or anything to do with anything of any God. So I don't believe that any gods exist. So I don't spend so much time with it. It's just that I spend a lot of time with Islam. I don't address a God that doesn't exist. I mean, it doesn't make sense, does it? Which means that despite your claim, Allah exists to you. Exactly, it doesn't. That's why I don't. I spend time with Islam, but not with a God. I ridicule him. I can't. Well, because if what doesn't exist, I can't ridicule, can it? His book, no, there is no his book because there's no his, and I know that there's plenty of books. His prophet, there's no prophets, so there's no his, no prophets, and no PBUH either. And his followers, I don't Well, actually, no, this is true. I ridicule the followers. This is true. I ridicule followers who come to me like I just saw in the chat people talking about Adnan Rashid. I made two videos how Adnan is being slapped around, and my favorite one, I must admit, I think this is on my Imam sister channel, which was left over, by the way, when my Imam father got flagged. I think Imam son and sister still exist. The others have been removed because Muslims are so buttered. Anyway, so this still exists. There, I think he's being slapped around by a female Jewish rabbi. So he's just left sitting there, sure, while she schools him. So, so I do ridicule people like Adnan Rashid or like Hijab or Ali Dawa and these people. Yes, And just because the followers exist does not mean that this God or whatever they follow exists, because there's a lot of people who follow Zeus or Cinderella or whatever, but this doesn't mean that Cinderella exists. And he says, otherwise, you demonstrate yourself as being mentally unstable for continuously talking about something that you don't believe is real. No, not really. Or could it be that you do it out of hate? No, it's not hate either. Definitely not. So then he goes into mockery and exaggerated, I don't know what this is supposed to do, I think sarcasm, but you are far superior in knowledge than lesser Muslim people, apostrophe S. I don't know where the apostrophe S comes in, but anyway, you are so enlightened and self-sufficient. Oh, this is so cute. Okay, that's it. I'm not going to comment any more on this. Let me go to the next one, which is reflections on recent speakers corner interactions. Now, this is quite funny. This is something that Rob said to me, where somebody commented. I don't know if you've heard on. There's a lot of discussions going on in speakers corner. It's a little bit different than it was a year ago. Today we had Taweed making a big show with Kalam, saying things about Kalam which are not simply not true. So I don't know why people hate Kalam so much. I don't quite get it. But anyway, so they do. And then somebody comments, Muhammad Taweed is sincere in his speech and actions. Now, I made a video where I took apart what he was doing to an unsuspecting person and where he was trying to convert him to Islam. I mean, he lies through his teeth. There is nothing honest and there's nothing sincere about what Muhammad Taweed does. And the way that he's standing on top of the fence and hating Christmas and things like that, what is sincere in his actions? I don't know. So he says the only problem is that he's young, naive, and doesn't know how to control his emotions, like the other Dawa team at Speaker's Corner, like Hamza Hashim and Ali Dawa, and the people who think they are at war with Islam, the religion of one God, and exploit this. I don't know why people actually get this impression. So I think this is a crazy comment because it shows the delusion, the level of delusion that people actually have. And I think this is quite quite obvious here. Okay, then this is a comment. Is there some verifiable evidence of your high IQ or not? And Kenny says, you laugh and chatter at the Hitler spatter as you chastise without relent. Can anybody, I don't know, does anybody have a tough seer to Kenny Boma? Does anybody have a translation? You laugh and chatter at the Hitler's batter as you chastise without relent? I don't know what that means, okay? Then I'll take that as a no. So don't expect me to take your boast seriously, okay? And then Michael Niemann, this is Facebook, where we all can create our own fiction. It's impossible to verify claims of our intellectual prowess, academic bona fide, or other relevant biographical information. Ultimately, we can only be judged with strength of our arguments. And this is so true. But people like Kenny don't really understand that, okay? And then he says, I thought maybe we would get a screenshot from an online vanity IQ test where the real test is whether you took the results seriously. And this is all this is all about a claim that Kenny made about his IQ being 150. So this is, it's really funny. So Kenny tries to, sort of defend himself, commenting about my IQ is merely a red herring. No, it's not. I couldn't care any less than I do about you believing anything that I have to say. Seriously, it matters not. So if it doesn't matter, why put it out there? And he says, was it a red herring when you brought it up in the first place? Exactly. Most of your comments seem to include an implicit or explicit boast of your own brilliance. That's the only reason why I'm asking for evidence. Okay, what else? Rob has sent me some more screenshots. Raj, you're a coward. You can't answer me. Guess I will come to London to confront you and tan by some Arabella Zain. Well, good on you. And this is a discussion with I'm a converted Muslim. Just by listening to these debates, Dr. Zakir, the more people criticize Islam, the more it grows and more people revert. That's the beauty of Islam. And that's the level of delusion once again. This liar, Soko Films, are paid and trying to stop Mansour from giving dawah to others by keeping him busy asking the same silly questions. Brother Mansour, they're just wasting your time. Ignore this hypocrite paperboy. Don't fall in this trap. This is what you get. This is what Muslims are commenting. Instead of bringing, real arguments or something, they address the person, and that is the only thing that they can manage. And here's another one. Jamie is so stupid, even a child would know that he hasn't studied anything about Islam. He's making a clear fool of himself. So then, if he is making a fool, then bring it. Bring the arguments and show us what is wrong, where he is wrong, why he is wrong. Then the same guy, again, for your information, you people who imagine to have learned something of Islam, the Quran gives general guidance on many issues, which are further expounded by hadith and analyzed by scholars to put into perspective for general masses. Okay, if that is true, why would a God issue a Quran and leave it incomplete, only then to complete it later through other texts? Does that make sense? Does that really make sense? That people come to us and they say, well, in Islam, we have a God, the only God, and we have one prophet, the last prophet, the one and only last prophet who is the best of all people, and so on and so forth. And then I'm going to send you a book. It's going to be guidance. It's going to guide you where? Well, it's going to guide you to me, to paradise. But I'm not going to tell you everything. Like, I'm going to tell you, I created you, knowing full well what you are going to do later, but I'm going to test you anyway, and I'm going to make you with a purpose, and that is to worship me. But I'm not going to tell you how. I'm going to wait 300 years until Bukhari comes along. He collects all the sayings, and then, only then, are you going to know how to worship me, but not before then. Come on. Does that make sense? Really? Oh, it doesn't to me anyway. So, Mufti Wongfish, here's by Kenny Bomer again. I never said that the Earth is the absolute center of the galaxy, so you are taking my comment out of context. I have already explained that to you, but let's say that I did mistakenly say that the Earth is the absolute center of our galaxy, which once again, I did not. Does one's IQ level mean that that person should never make a mistake and should be expected to be correct at all times about all matters, as if to be all-knowing? Of course not. Your efforts to antagonize only demonstrate your lack of reasoning. But hey, who am I to say? You're an atheist. Yeah. Okay, this is so, this is so hilarious. I think this is so funny. Oh goodness. Okay, and this is what happens when you comment. This is what Facebook does. This is what I call, well, it is hypocrisy. At least that's what I call it, because this is what happens when I go to a Muslim group and I comment on one, I don't know, somebody who writes something, then I reply, and then that person suddenly blocks you. Now, instead of saying, you have been blocked by this person, so you can just shut up because this guy is not interested in your opinion, Facebook says, sorry, this content isn't available right now. The link you followed may have expired, or maybe not. Or the page may be visible to an audience you are not in. So they don't tell you, listen, you've been screwed. The guys told you to fuck off, and now you just go play somewhere else. No, they tell you it's not available right now. And I think this is so dishonest. And this is what Facebook is doing. This is what Twitter is doing. This is what YouTube is doing. And Instagram and all the other outlets who are saying, well, everybody should feel comfortable. So you're not allowed to antagonize others. You're not allowed to criticize anybody. And if you do, then that person has the right to shut you up, because we don't want free speech anymore. And we're not going to tell you either, because Muslims have the right to feel safe in their own lives. They can spread lies. They can tell us that there is no compulsion in religion. They can tell us anything that they want. There is nothing violent in Islam. And we can't do anything. We can't protect ourselves from those lies. And I don't understand, why is it that we have to defend ourselves against Muslims, against people, against human beings? Why doesn't this God do something? And this is so brilliant. Let your gods speak for themselves. Shut up. Let your gods do the talking. But don't come to me and say, oh, but you can't do this, you can't do this, and da 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 da. I think this is so petty. And I don't understand why it is that the gods can't do this themselves. Okay, there you go. And Veedu has arrived. I just see, yeah. Show and broadcast. Yes, show and broadcast. Present to everyone. Yes. No, I don't, not broadcast. Now, how do I do this? Stop presenting. Okay, show and broadcast. Yes, you're there. And stop presenting. There you go. Okay. Welcome, Veedu Vidz. Thank you very much for making it just in time.
Thank you so much for having me, and I really appreciate that. How are you doing?
I don't know if this is me. I can't hear anything.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Why can't I hear anything?
Hello?
Is this only me?
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Okay, I've just realized that my headphones have gone dead for some odd reason.
Hello?
They were working until just now.
Oh, okay. I think the guys can hear me. And maybe Stops can't. How's it going, people? Veedu Vidz in the house. Rightio, guys. How's it going? I'm taking over the show because Stop Spamming can't hear me. So, how you guys doing? Smoke weed every day. Don't mind me. I'm just sipping on some nice masala chai that I just got from some Sri Lankan place. Hello?
My
can you hear me now?
headphones, can you believe it? 2 seconds. I don't know why. I had them charged and they suddenly went dead.
Don't worry, bro. I'm enjoying this. The
Wow.
Gin and
Hello,
Tonic
Veedu Vidz. Welcome to the Gin and Tonic show.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes. I'm very good. Thank you very much. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. And yourself?
I'm very good.
Just getting ready for the weekend.
I am ready for the weekend.
Brilliant.
Absolutely. How are things on your side?
I heard. I mean, I've been watching a lot of what you do, and I enjoy what you are doing so much. It's unbelievable.
Well, I appreciate that.
The thing is that I saw your interview with, I have to say, Dr. Shabi Ali, because he has a PhD. Can you believe it? And I was quite amazed to find out that you can actually get a PhD in Islam. And for me, this is like getting a PhD in Cinderella or something. So this is absolutely amazing. But I must admit, Shabi Ali is one of the more intelligent Muslim apologists, and the arguments that he brings forward, I quite like listening to him a lot of times, and I think you made the most of it. And I think it's brilliant to see that somebody like you, and this is the topic that I chose for today's topic, the ex-Muslim, that you, being an ex-Muslim, can have a polite exchange and interaction without being beheaded or killed or anything with a cleric, with one of the scholars of Islam. And this for me was so brilliant. What did it make you feel like?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I just want to give a bit of background. I used to listen to a lot to Sheikh Shabir Ali when I was obviously Muslim and younger, and I always found he was a bit more rational, a bit more reasonable, calm, measured in his opinions. So I actually, one of the someone from the UK who comes to Speaker's Corner, he is a Muslim, but he said, I'm a big fan of yours, and I like what you do. So Shabir Ali coming to town, and would you want to interview him? So I was like, bloody hell, of course, that'd be amazing. So long story, I mean, there's a whole story behind this. I tried to interview him in Regent's Park Mosque. I kind of got kicked out because someone found out I'm Veedu Vidz and whatever. So anyway, I ended up interviewing Sheikh Shabir, and we only had around half an hour, and I had a list of 10 questions. And bearing in mind, I did not. I mean, I met him a few days before the interview just to sort of get to know him. and I told him, he wasn't aware that I wasn't a ex-Muslim. He wasn't aware. So I told him, Salam Sheikh, this, that, I'm an ex-Muslim and I have a YouTube channel, and so on and so forth. And his face kind of like, oh, okay. What obviously it's a bit of a surprise. I was saying salam this, salam that, and being very nice, and he's like, what the hell? But he was such a gentleman about it. He was so cool. I said, I want to interview you. He didn't have any prerequisite, okay, but it has to be on this, we can't talk about that, these are the conditions. It was just, yeah, sure, like, that's it, sure, have a conversation, which I found to be, completely honest, the most honorable thing that I've found about him. Because some of these guys, they can be, oh, but I'm only going to talk about this, but you can't ask me this question, but it has to be on these conditions, and they put up a whole sort of hurdle, 10 hurdles before we can even have a conversation. He was like, yeah, let's have a chat. I didn't even show him the questions beforehand. On the day, I showed him a piece of paper. I said, I told him I was going to ask this. He didn't even ask me. I said, I want to talk about X, Y, and Z. We didn't have that much time. We had around half an hour. So he said, okay, we'll try and get through as much as possible. So I just focused on two things, which was virgin birth and the whole blasphemy and apostasy stuff. And I honestly was like, I even told him, it's like I'm meeting, it's like I'm a fanboy meeting one of my sort of, I'll be honest with you, and I'm not even joking. I still got a lot of respect for him, and he genuinely is a pure gentleman, which is I've really enjoyed having a chat with him. So yeah, I mean, I had that conversation and I shared it with you guys, and I hope it was a good thing to witness. Two people, one's an Islamic apologist, scholar, PhD, whatever you want to call it, prominent speaker, and I'm just some guy on YouTube taking the piss, but we're having a normal conversation as if, no big deal. So if you can take anything from that conversation, just take that away,
Yes. I think this is a lot. I mean, don't underdo yourself. Look, you've made quite a splash, okay? Because I mean, you've been around not so long, and what you have managed now in the last 8, 9, maybe 12 months is amazing. I mean, if I look back a couple of months, I mean, you had like 100 subscribers or something, and now suddenly look at this. I mean, it's like an explosion. So
yeah.
clearly, people appreciate what you are doing and the way you are doing it, and that is important.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. I mean, in the last 6 months, my subscription has doubled. It was 5,000. I mean, it took about 2 years maybe to get to 5,000. It took like 6 months to get to 10.
Yeah, exactly.
Something like it just hit a sort of a certain threshold, and I think, I don't know which video went viral or whatever it was, and then it's just been growing ever since. And I'm just genuinely thankful to all the support that I've got from people who either watch the videos or like similar channels like yourself, Jinn&Tonic, Rob, and other people who have helped me learn and shared ideas, so on and so forth. And that's what it's all about, man. I mean, at the end of the day, I can make videos, but if you're not a likable person, if people don't find you to be honest, then they will, either turn off, or you'll become some sort of a attention whore, like a what's his name, Adam Saleh or whatever, kind of like, oh my god, like, look at this fake prank, man. It's like, no, that, I mean, I don't know. That's just not me personally speaking. So I've always tried to, keep myself honest, and I think so the people around me, so, and that's what's most important.
And I think it shows, and I think this is what is appreciated. I totally agree. And with Whimsy now on, which is a totally different style. And
Yeah,
but it's nice. I mean, I quite enjoy. I mean, she is so like really a bag of beans. Like so
yes.
much energy. It's wonderful.
Yep. I mean, I feel like she's the real personality, for that. She's actually made. My wife is made for this kind of stuff. I'm just the kind of guy that's trying to put it together. But I think her personality and her energy is just so much, it's just way higher than mine, personally speaking. And um, the whole thing is basically, when we do, like, for example, just chatting on YouTube or doing challenges, like, we're just normal people. That's what it is. We're
Yeah.
just showing that I'm just like, we're not like some Satanists, casting spell on people with a sort of cauldron, sort of, and all that kind of nonsense. So yeah, it's just about normalizing the whole conversation. I remember, I think someone asked me, or someone asked me, I can't remember who it was, why do you call yourself ex-Muslim? Why can't you just call yourself atheist? Why is it a big deal? And I personally don't get a thrill out of saying I'm ex-Muslim, I'm ex this, I'm ex that. And of course, I'm not just an ex-Muslim. I'm just, it's like me saying I'm atheist. That only tells you one position of my many positions. I've got, I could be vegetarian, I could be flat earth, I could be anything I want. But I think the term ex-Muslim is useful because unfortunately, there are many countries in the world where being an ex-Muslim either gets you killed or puts your life in danger, puts your family in danger. So when we get to that moment where it's normalized, where it's not a big deal, and when if I were to in Saudi or Pakistan or Indonesia say I'm an ex-Muslim, and the Muslims can be like, yeah, so what? Big deal. Like, go with yourself. When we get to that day, I will happily get rid of this term. I will delete it from anything that I've ever made. But until then, mate, I think it's provocative, but it's very important. It's very important to normalize this.
And yeah, I think this is a very good point that you're making. This is like a perfect segue, because this is something that I would like to talk a little bit about today. What is the relationship of Islam towards the ex?
Yeah.
And this is something that I find troubling. And what I find a lot of Muslims, a lot of followers are troubled by this as well.
Yeah.
Because whenever it comes to this topic, you get a lot of peevish smiles, and you don't get the pushback that you get if you're talking about Muhammad and his young wife and things like that. People are very, upfront about it. But when you talk about apostasy and the relationship, there's a lot of different reactions, quite surprising sometimes, the way and the very different ways different Muslims react to it. What kind of reactions have you experienced in your life being an ex-Muslim and being upfront about it?
I think people react differently, but I mean, obviously, I haven't had like the harshest reaction. I'm still alive, I'm still with my family, I'm still cool with them, whatever it is. Although that, there has been a slight shift in the way either my family or friends view me, which has been it's been a learning experience. Let's put it that way. But it does depend from person to person. Some people are genuinely inquisitive and want to know. Even I met some guy who I used to, me and him used to go to the same mosque, and he was a bit more religious and a bit more. Yeah, I mean, he's a very nice guy, but he's very, very religious and sort of beard, hat, all the rest of it. And he found out, or he asked me, I told him, and I thought, oh, for God's sake, man, I didn't want to get into this conversation. He's going to ask me and grill me and give me a hard time. But he was actually just asking normal questions. And he was like, that's cool, bro. That's cool. You're just doing your thing. It's fine. It's fine. And some people have just been almost as if I don't know, committed some sort of treason, and I'm not like, it's all like some people have said, well, now that you've left Islam, like what's the point in being Pakistani? Like, you don't have any connection with that country anymore.
Wow.
And I was like, what? Like, I don't get it. Like, what's that got to do with anything? Like, this is a belief. Pakistan is a country, but Pakistan is an interesting country because it's the first country, modern nation state that's built upon religion. All the other Arab states are built upon Arab identities. Pakistani is not an ethnicity. It's based on, this is a country for Muslims, which is interesting now because I was speaking to this guy, Kaushal Mehra from India, who's saying, now that you've left Islam, Pakistan, it doesn't mean anything to you anymore, because the whole point of it was it's a state for Muslims. You are no longer a Muslim. You might as well come to India. And I said that to my Pakistani friend, who's obviously Muslim, and then only then he's like, no, you should come to Pakistan, only because of the India-Pakistan rivalry. Otherwise, probably before, he was like, yeah, man, I'm not really sure this, that, and the other about you, because you're no longer. I get a lot of second guessing now, unfortunately, from family and friends. Are like, I'm not sure if I can tell you this because you're no longer Muslim, or I don't know how you're going to take it. But can I tell you a funny story? This has actually happened a few weeks ago, and genuinely, like, obviously, I told my family I'm not Muslims. They did not react well, especially when the news got to Pakistan. It was not good, to put it plainly.
So they all know. Your family all know.
The ones in the UK knew from a long time ago.
Okay.
The ones in Pakistan found out literally with the spread of Mimsy's video. because that was quite. And I was like, oh, for fuck's sake. And everyone's having a go at me, even though I wasn't even on the bloody video. They're having a go, like, why didn't you tell her? Why didn't you do this to her? Like, well, you should have explained to her, like, because you're a husband. I was like, motherfucker, she left. No, she left. Anyway, so I was like, anyway, I don't want to get into too much details, but anyway, so that all, shit the fan, whatever you want to call it. So anyway, my grandma came to London. She was in America beforehand, and she came, and this is so stupid. We I met this. We have this like old family friend who's like really religious. She came to our house that day with her son, and I haven't seen her in ages. She doesn't know anything about ex-Muslim, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, and she's like one of those aunties, like, okay, beta, it's namaz time. You have to pray now. And everyone's like, oh, okay, fine, I have to pray. Even though they're all Muslims, oh, okay, we don't, the only time you pray is basically Friday prayer. But she was like, okay, beta, we have to pray. Everyone get together, do wuzu, do this. So I thought, okay, fine, I'll just go along with it, man. I'm not going to cause a fuss. My mom's there, my grandma's there. They're all kind of upset that I left. So I'm not going to make a scene. I'm just going to go in the back rows and someone else will lead the salah. My idiot brother, no, bruv, you go for it. He knows very well. He's obviously taking the piss now. Bruv, you leading it, bruv. And he said, no, bruv, please, you go for it. You got an amazing voice. And then obviously my friend, the woman's son, he's like, bruv, yeah, I'm the guest, so I'm not gonna lead. I looked at my dad. I was like, bruv, okay, you obviously now have to lead. You have to lead. And he's like, nope, I'm not. I'm like, are you guys taking the piss? You want the one guy is in the room who's not a bloody Muslim. You want him to lead the prayer. And I went to my grandma and said, listen, this salah is not going to be accepted because, you've got a bloody kafir leading it. And she goes, no, better, don't worry. Allah will accept all your prayers. She thought if I pray, I'll get closer to Islam. I said to my dad, do you want your prayer to be bloody accepted or not? And he just looked away. He said, no, you're going to lead it. So now I'm leading the salah. And I'm thinking, I can't remember the last time I read any of these verses. I can't remember the last time. And this is one of those prayers that you have to say out loud. It's not one of those ones where you just say Allahu Akbar and that's it. You have to say the whole recitation. And I was like, bro, it must be at least 5-6 years since I openly led any prayer. Anyway, so while I'm saying the prayer, I'm remembering it. So my mind is like, I don't want to make any mistake, because they'll be like, why are you making mistakes? You should know this by now. These are simple things, so on and so forth. Anyway, I finished the whole prayer and I breathed a sigh of relief. I didn't make any mistakes. And then the auntie goes, Walid, have you been practicing? And I was like, yeah. And obviously, my dad and my brother, they started laughing. They're like, oh, yeah, he's been practicing a lot. And anyway, so then after the prayer, my grandma got really emotional. She started crying, hugging me, and this, that. Oh, better is not to turn to, it's not too late to turn around, and this and that. I was like, yeah, okay, cool, inshallah. And that was it, man. That was the last time I prayed. Not really sure if their prayers were accepted. I was like, at the end of the day, it's not even real anyway. So you can make of that what you want. But yeah, that's what more can I say, man?
What about, did you go and see friends of yours?
My friends, one of them, who's been a very close friend of mine, actually, I didn't realize he blocked me on Facebook a while back because he said like, we are on talking terms, but he's like, some of the stuff you post, it just really offends me or I can't handle it, so I blocked you. And he told me, I want to tell you that face to face, or even on the phone. I want to tell you like a man. I don't want anyone else to tell you. So I was like, fair enough. You don't have to, and you don't have to look at my Facebook if you don't want to. But he said, he's up for meeting and whatnot. So yeah, man. I mean, my other friends have been, he's been okay. He's been very. We still have a very good conversation. But there are times where he sometimes second guesses me. He's like, oh, I'm not sure if I can trust you. You might take what I say and put it on Twitter or what. I'm like, bro, I'm not going to do it to you. If you're my friend, I'm not going to expose my conversation with you on Twitter or Facebook. I mean, I'm not bloody, an idiot. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it, to be honest with you. I haven't got that many Muslim friends. I've got a lot of Muslim family friends, but we don't really chat about religion that much, to be honest. So it doesn't really come up.
If you look at people, regardless whether they're family or friends, what would the perfect reaction be in your eyes when a Muslim comes across an ex-Muslim? Is there any protocol or is there any reaction where you would say that was the perfect way of handling it?
Oh, do you mean what I would ideally want?
Yes.
Okay, so the best example I can give is, if you've left any job, they always have an exit interview, right?
Yeah.
They always see, always ask you, how was your experience? What did we do wrong? What could we have done better?
Right.
So on and so forth. They're getting your feedback because they want to see, how could we have kept this guy? I feel
Okay.
like unfortunately, the stereotypical response from Muslims is, well, you must be at fault, right? Don't blame the company. It's always the employee. The ideal response should have been, did we do anything wrong, or what advice would you give to us Muslims that we could be better in our conduct, so we wouldn't push people away or something like that. That's the ideal response is, oh, okay, and it's not a big deal. But if they really want to have a chat about it, that would be the ideal response. Have that self-reflection. The default thing is be defensive, point the finger outside, and you must have been wrong, or you left for emotional reasons, or blah blah blah, or astaghfirullah, you just gave into the shaitan, or you want to be a white person and live a Western lifestyle, when in fact that is the furthest thing from the truth. And that's also racist, by the way, but it's also the furthest thing from the truth. The real response, the response of someone who really is grounded, would have been, how could we have done better? But
Right.
I don't know if they've come down to that yet.
Have you ever come across anybody who's come to you and say, listen, bro, I understand where you come from, what has been going through, but I don't have the guts to do the same?
Yep, I actually met someone. I think it was last month in Speaker's Corner. I'd never met this guy before, but I think he knew me or kind of knew me. I'm not really sure. And he said, and we were having a conversation, and he was like, "Bruv, like, I want to do it, but I just can't. Like, my family, my friends, my community, it's just too much. It's just too much. I can't do it.
Wow.
And he was telling me, like, listen, what you're saying, I pretty much agree with, like, God, the whole concept of God, the whole concept of religion, blah blah blah. We're having a nice chat, and at the end, I didn't realize I didn't know where he was, ex-Muslim almost. I didn't know. And then at the end, he goes, "Yeah, man, what you're saying is true. I want to leave, but I can't." And I think there are many people, who are in that boat where they want to leave, but it's like, you know what? It's just not worth it. It's not worth the hassle of coming out. Not worth it. Just play along. It's fine. Just live your life. And it's sad that it has to happen, but I'm sure there are many people like that, and there are also many people who just who just don't give a damn about religion. They're not necessarily convinced one way or the other, but they're like, whatever. I don't really care, man. I'm just doing my own thing. Um, so there are many people out there like that. I a few family members of mine in Pakistan. I didn't, when I used to go to Pakistan and meet my cousins, it was just playing cricket and messing around. But obviously, when you get older, you actually have a decent conversation. And the some of the stuff he was coming out with, I was like, bro, I had no idea you had these opinions. But obviously, it would be like literally suicide to come out in Pakistan and be like, yes, I'm this, I'm that. But we have a chat, and what can I say? I was surprised. I didn't know. But there are many people out there like that. So we can only see the true. I mean, people keep saying, "Oh, the fastest growing religion." Okay, and of course, birth rates and blah blah blah. But even if we dispel all of that, let's just put that to a side. The true numbers of any movement when there is no threat of leaving, or there's no threat of punishment or any physical repercussions. Then you will know what's growing and what's decaying. And I
That's an
think
excellent point.
there's a lot of decay, or just sort of apathy within the Muslim world, which is hidden or stifled because of certain laws which suppress which suppress people from speaking their mind.
Yeah, this reminds me of Eastern Germany, where they had to build a wall around the country so people don't run away.
Yeah, well, we've built psychological and mental wars with the blasphemy laws, with apostasy laws,
Yes.
with even I was actually, because I'm actually going to release a video on the whole recent Imran Khan thing. His blasphemy nonsense, the absolute clown of a thing.
I was going to get to that at the end.
Yeah,
Yeah.
don't worry, man. I've been researching on. I'm actually editing a video on that just now. I'll hopefully release it today, tomorrow, or whatever.
Okay.
But yeah, and it's so, because technically speaking, the blasphemy law is there, but no one has actually ever been sentenced to death by the government for blasphemy. mainly
Although people
because
have been killed for it. Yeah, yeah,
it hasn't even got to that point. They usually get killed before the sentence is given. That's how crazy it is, that before they can actually be sentenced, or before they, even if, for example, they were sentenced to death, before the court can do it, or the government can do it, they're killed by mobs.
yeah.
So one thing is the government is bad, but you have to lay the blame at the people. If it was like, one person got killed before the trial, you'd be like, okay, that was an aberration. If 20, 30 of them get killed by mobs, then it's not an aberration. Then this is part of the culture, unfortunately. And this is the huge task that is required for a country like Pakistan and others like it, where it's so, and people are whipped up in such a frenzy when you just throw the accusation out. This person said something blasphemous, or this person left Islam, or this person said something disrespectful about the Prophet. It is, it's like their arse has been set on fire, and they just have to just, act it out violently, or smash a car, or burn something, or beat someone to death. So before the government can even get there, before the quote unquote proper channels of law and order can do anything, the people are so nuts.
Mm.
And that's for me even worse, because it's like, even if tomorrow theoretically Imran Khan had somehow found the balls to say, we're going to get rid of blasphemy, either he would be killed, or I'm telling you, there'll be some sort of civil war, or there'll be some sort of like this crazy violent outpour of emotions and actions. So even if the government gets their act together, the people are nowhere near where they should be for something like that to happen. And that is, if that's not worrying, if that's not depressing, I don't know what is.
I think it's madness, isn't
It's
it?
crazy. It's absolutely. It's like, I know people are like, "Oh, you're racist," but it's animalistic. It is animalistic, as if they have absolutely no agency of their own actions. It's as if someone's pressed a red button and they can't help it but explode, or
Yeah.
be violent, or act like a wild beast, mad frenzied. Oh my god, anything that comes in, I'm gonna swipe at it and kill it. I mean, seriously, this is.
Well,
I mean, that guy that I've been posting a video. Sorry, I didn't mean to go on and on. Please stop me if you want to, whatever, ask questions or whatever. But that guy Hassan Nisar, I've been posting videos of. I've been
yes.
translating those videos um, on my YouTube channel. He's that Pakistani journalist who's been pretty frank about some of the
Brilliant.
failures.
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Just, I mean, straight to the point, no BS. I'm going to translate one other of his videos. The problem with him is his Urdu is so deep. It takes me ages to translate his stuff, because he's got some very heavy vocabulary. Anyway, he was saying, if you go to the West and you insult someone's mum, he was saying it on the Pakistani TV. Even if you call someone like a son of a bitch, like, they're not going to do anything to you. Over here in he's referring to Pakistan. If you call them a liar, they go crazy. Even though you probably are a liar, you go crazy. He goes,
Well,
these people, their tolerance, their ethics. I mean, the question was, okay, fine. The West is more superior in science and technology, but at least the Muslim world has better ethics. And he tore that question apart. He absolutely dismantled them.
yeah.
And I really want to translate that into English, because I think it really is worth
Very
the.
super. You must have seen, or you must have heard the numbers where they say, for example, in Saudi, you have 30% of the people not really being convinced that there is this Islamic God, and
Yeah.
who are too scared to go and do anything about it. Do you think that the numbers are similar in Pakistan?
It's really hard. I can't remember now, but Haris Sultan was telling me the numbers of how many estimated atheists, or secular agnostics, whatever you want to call them. I think he was. I can't. Bloody hell, I can't remember the number now, but I think it was something like 5%, perhaps, which is a big number. That could be as many. I don't know how many Shia. No, there's probably more Shias in Pakistan than atheists. But I mean, that's a pretty big number. But you don't know the real number until you have an honest. It's like, for example, in North Korea. I'm not saying Pakistan is as extreme as North Korea, but in North Korea, how many people are there going to be that believe in the free market? Next to nothing, maybe a few percent here or there. How many people are there going to be that genuinely believe in quote unquote enlightened values, so on and so forth? That's not because they don't genuinely don't believe in them. That's because they've never been exposed to them.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we don't know what they really believe or how many number of people believe in what ideology if they haven't been exposed to the whole, to all the ideas and to all the facts. If they had a very selective reading of something, then most likely, they will believe in that, and very few will read outside of their, outside the box and do a bit of research here and there. But the vast majority of people believe what they're told, because that's the very narrow spectrum of ideas that they're allowed to entertain. So they'll debate Shia or Sufi or Sunni or Salafi and Brelvi and Deobandi, but it's all within the scope of Islam.
Right.
Will they
The
genuinely?
minor differences, yeah.
Right, exactly. This, is the Prophet made out of light or not? Have a
Yeah,
have,
okay.
have a very rigorous debate about that. When is the moon sighting? Oh, have a very rigorous debate about. Oh, we are so amazing. Look how eloquently we debate about moon sighting. Look how eloquently debate is the Prophet made out of light. Bloody hell! Was the Prophet a prophet? Ooh, don't want to go there. Don't want
But
to
this
go
is
there.
what I know from Tehran. This is exactly the kind of discussion those people would have.
Mm.
But then the people, this is the funny thing, the people were actually different. They were more open. The people there, they have satellite dishes. They want to know what is going on in the world. So they are watching CNN, and they're watching all the different reports on Iran. What is the situation? Because in Afghanistan, it's something like in between. But I remember all the intelligentsia and all that. They left Kabul. I remember this. And then they slowly came back when the Taliban were ousted. What is the situation in Pakistan towards the West, towards the outside world? Is it more open or is it more closed? Because I see in Iran, it's more open. And in other places in Afghanistan, it's more closed. What's it like in Pakistan?
In Pakistan, and this is my very limited experience, like when I went there this time round. Sorry. Whether it is in Lahore, which is a bit more conservative, traditional, or Karachi, which is pretty much like a Western city.
Yeah.
Not in terms of what it looks, but in terms of the people, they're very Western minded. Wherever you, in the major cities anyway. I don't know about the villages because I don't really go there. I haven't really got any family there. But in the cities, the children, they think Western, they speak Western, they watch the same TV shows, the movies. I had like I don't know, 9-year-old, 8-year-old cousins, girls singing, that song by Sean Paul and Sia, and I never even heard of it, and they had such a terrible accent. I'm like, what the hell are they singing? Like, oh baby, this, and well, I was like, what the? And I was like, oh, they're singing that song. So I'm like, how they memorize these songs? They know everything. So they take all the sort of MTV, Hollywood, The Wire, Breaking Bad, all that they'll consume it full. But when it comes to intellectual thought, they're Pakistani or they're Muslim. So they have a very strange relationship with the West, where they idolize the West and they admire the West for the entertainment and for the fashion, and oh my God, it's so amazing, and this and that, the money, the glitz, the glam. But at the end of the day, we got the truth.
And they're
So
still
yes,
they're still indoctrinated and not able to abort this. Wow.
yeah.
Okay, welcome
Sorry,
Abdel.
go on, yeah.
I just want to welcome Abdel quickly. We're talking. Oh, he's just left again, because I was just going to say whether he has any input or wants to ask something about ex-Muslim, because he still is a Muslim, but he is. I don't know if you watched previous shows. Abdel is a more rational, more reasonable person. He is not so indoctrinated like some others. So this is show and broadcast. There you go. Welcome, Abdel. Do you have anything that you would like to tell us about your attitude towards ex-Muslims?
Hello, guys. How's everybody doing this beautiful Friday day?
Hi, how's it going? You right, man?
Yeah, everything is good. Yes, I just wanted to mention something about the Pakistani people, and I'll get to your questions, Tops. And in my experience with the Pakistanis living in the West, I find the ones who are ultra nationalistic to be the worst brand of Pakistani, personally. My personal experience, the ones that have like that, almost like fascist ultra nationalism in them. They just end up being very, very bad people to deal with in general, like personal. They come off very awkward or very, unpleasant. The best Pakistanis I have ever dealt with are recent immigrants who have higher education. They seem to be the most prosperous, and they integrate very well, and they're very sophisticated, and they practice their religion. So I this is my anecdotal observation of the Pakistani community in the West, and it almost like, can you guys hear me just fine?
Yeah, fine.
Yep.
Yeah, and when I talk to the nationalist Pakistanis, they tend to not be religious. Like they would, not observe the religion, but they would be fanatical and like pretending to know the religion, in my personal experience. And when I question them about their background, where they're from, they tend to come from, quote unquote working class backgrounds. They don't come from educated families, from my understanding. Like they won't say that, but when I ask them questions indirectly, I get information. So they're ultra-nationalistic, and they are more likely to support, quote unquote, the death penalty for ex-Muslims. And but when they're in the West, they drink, they go to clubs, they don't really observe Islamic manners. But it's almost like a paradox. It seems like the educated ones from Pakistan are very successful, very well mannered. They integrate very well, and they observe their religion. So this is something that I've always found fascinating within the Pakistani community.
Okay. Welcome everybody to Jinn&Tonic Show. We're talking about ex-Muslims today, and I'm very happy to have two people who can contribute something here. What I would like to ask Bedel on this is, if you are confronted with an ex-Muslim, somebody who says to you, well, I've been a Muslim now for 30 years and now I've had enough, and now I don't believe any of this anymore. I feel liberated, because this is something that I hear again and again and again, that Muslims who stop believing this feel liberated. What is your reaction to this?
I take their word for it.
Okay.
I'll tell you why, because the way that I was raised in the West, and I was raised by I would say, a conservative family. But in my entire life, I was never compelled to follow my family's religion. I never felt this pressure. But I knew friends from my community and other Islamic communities, they felt the pressure. They always had to be at the mosque. They always had to try to memorize the Qur'an. They felt the pressure to be Muslims. And I have to be honest, I never felt the pressure to ever be a Muslim as I was growing up. It was very natural for me to be brought up in Islam, because I could only say it's because my father is very hands-off. Father, I mean, he was always there, don't get me wrong, but he was a very cool guy, in the sense he practiced religion, but he was very hands-off. He would only tell me about the religion if I ever showed interest about it. I don't remember a time where he sat me down and told me Sharia and the laws and this and the punishment in hellfire or what's awaiting for me in heaven. That was more with my mother, and my mother's perspective is more like from her oral tradition, from how her mothers and her aunts taught her the religion. So that's how the religion came to me.
Okay, so the way that I understand it is that you are looking more at the spiritual side than the rituals, the actual practicing. Veedu, if I take you back like 20 years, and we look at the texts, and we look at the Quran, and we look at the Hadith, and we look at all the dogma around this, did you feel uncomfortable when it said, if somebody leaves, then this is like treason, kill him?
Yeah, I mean, the first time you hear something like that, it does make you feel uncomfortable. But, I always was told by either my parents that, this isn't the real interpretation, or this isn't the real way to look at it. So I always sort of had this thing, well, this is, Muslims are right now in a state of a sort of one of our lowest points in history. And the reason why that is so is because the scholars have let us down and they're coming up with nonsensical interpretations. Therefore, all of the bad stuff you see about Islam is just bad interpretations or wrong interpretations.
Wow.
There is a right interpretation out there. I just haven't got to it yet. That was my sort of default mode of thinking, to be honest with you.
But it was something that was brought up in conversations.
It was more that most of this stuff, I'll be honest with you, when it's apostasy or blasphemy or stoning or all of this stuff, I did not learn it in my mosque. I did not learn it at home. It was usually when you watch TV shows where there's a debate and you get a Islam critic saying, "But you believe in stoning, but you believe in X, but what happens to people who leave Islam? What happens?" And then you would find out, oh, is this what we really believe? Like, is this like for me? I never
Wow.
learn this stuff because obviously my parents are not going to teach me, son, if you've of course then they're normal people, so that was not part of the common conversation. It was more pray and fast and don't have a boyfriend, girlfriend, don't drink alcohol. That was pretty much Islam for me. So I learned a lot of this stuff from critics of Islam. And at first I'm like, why these guys have given Islam such a hard time? They don't even know the right interpretation. If only they knew what I knew, then they would be Muslims. That was my sort of way of thinking, to be honest.
And let me tell you, I was actually told when I used to, because I used to spend a lot of time in the Islamic Cultural Center in Abu Dhabi and in Doha. And there, the guys, I mean, especially in Doha, the guy, Mr. Omar, he looked at me and he said to me, "What is wrong with you? You know all these things about Islam. You know the Quran. Why are you not a Muslim?" He could not understand it. This is exactly what you
Yeah.
are saying.
Yep,
They assume
absolutely.
that if you know something, you should follow it.
Yep. And this is why Muslims are harshest on ex-Muslims, because they knew, right? There's no excuse for those guys. I mean, if someone is not a Muslim from the beginning and who knows what they've learned and who knows what they've come across, but you're born because you were lucky enough, Allah gave you enough mercy to be born in a Muslim family.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what is your excuse? It has to be because you want to be Western, you want to be white, you want to live a life of debauchery and just depravity, and or you're being emotional and you've had a beef with your mom and dad, therefore you're just rebelling. And I've had this as well. I was speaking to someone from Speaker's Corner. I'm not going to mention his name, but he's pretty prominent and he's a convert to Islam. Let's just leave it there. And he was saying this. He, 5 minutes into the conversation, and I was having a conversation with him. He started psychoanalyzing me. I can tell you're a young guy and you're going through something in your life, and this is that part of the phase, and this is this, and this is that. And he went on, and I was like, bro, thank you for the free therapy session, but I was having a conversation about something else, and now you've completely deflected and given me a sort of, I've watched that TV series, The Sopranos, when he goes into the shrink. Like, I felt like I was in just like he's trying to psycho. He knew nothing about me. This is the first time I met him, and he's telling me my whole life story, and he was completely way off. And I could really hammer this guy, but I'm not going to because I'm not like that. I'm not going to expose who he is. But I mean, first he played the man and not the ball, and afterward, once we got over that, I mean, I was speaking to him for at least an hour and a half. After we got over that, I think in the end he realized, maybe this guy, I'm guessing, I can't read his mind. Maybe, this guy isn't as bad as what I thought he was. But the initial response is, someone must have wronged you, as a Muslim, because there's no way on earth, if the facts are presented to you on a piece of paper, no one in their right mind would reject them. And it's sort of arrogance. And then he gave me the whole therapy session, which I haven't yet sent him the bill for. So.
Abdel, what about you? Do you remember these things being brought up, or how did you learn about these things?
Well,
These things
I mean,
being, all the negative things that if you leave Islam, that you need to be punished severely.
well, I grew well. The introduction to my religion is, why I became curious with Islam, believe it or not, was because of 9/11. I think I was maybe 10 years old when 9/11 happened, and it was 9/12, and I think it was the next day at school. It was our French teacher, and she literally did not teach French that day. She literally asked the class, what do you think about 9/11? Right? And at the time I was going to a school that had, I would say maybe a small minority of Muslim students. I would say a good minority. Maybe out of the school of maybe 300 people, there was probably 30 or 40 Muslim students in my grade group. And when I seen 9/11, when my because we had to go home at 9/11. The principal was an American. He was a Canadian and American, and he sent everybody home. We were at home by 11 o'clock. My dad came from work because he used to drive cab there. And I remember my dad's expression on the television. He was in shock. He's like, I can't believe this is really happening, type of thing. He was shocked, you know. And and then I asked my dad, what's going on? What's happening? He's like, I don't. This is unacceptable. This is like shocking from his perspective. And I think it was the next day they started talking about Osama bin Laden blowing up somewhere around the news. And our teacher was asking, what do you guys think about the terrorist attacks? Because I think it was by 9/12, after 9/11, everybody knew it was a terrorist attack. So the French teacher was asking the class, what do you guys think about terrorists attacking America? And I remember the vast majority of students was like, because we were in a liberal school, to be very honest. So most of the students was said, no, it's wrong. The terrorist attack is wrong. But a lot of students, I remember that most of the Muslim students said, maybe it's because America does a lot of bad things around the world. And this is a Canadian school, and it's a very liberal school. So, you know, they're taught, big bad America. And there was quite a number of students that said, you know, this is wrong, but maybe because America had, and this is a young class. I think this was like grade 6, you know. So after that, I noticed a big cultural shift. I started growing up with, you know, a lot of other Muslims. And as we were growing up, a lot started becoming religious. A lot started, there was a lot of questions going on from the students we went with. A lot of teachers became interested in Islam. And I think by the time I was a teenager, you know, we were arguing with the Sufi students and the Sunni students and the Shia students about what type of interpretation of Islam. And this was like very popular in my age group at the time, you know. I think it was when I was 17 when I started hearing about the stoning and this and that. And I guess it was because of all of these questions and growing up in that environment, I decided to study within Islam. And then I got introduced to, you know, Salafi circles. And I would say that's when everything blew up. Like I would have been very ignorant of my religion if it wasn't for that event. And I think a lot of people would have been very ignorant about Islam in general all over the world if it wasn't for that event. And I think that was a pivotal event that many people all over the world started to question and ask, what does Islam really teach? And that's what I would say.
But if I listen to you, Abdel, why the hell are you not an ex-Muslim?
Oh man, because I like to think. Well, here's the thing. I like to think that I freed myself twice. I freed myself from organized religion, and I freed myself from organized academia. So I like to think of myself as a free thinker.
Organized academia?
Yes, I said that. I know I said that. I know it sounds crazy, but that's I freed myself from narrow thinking, and that's what I give myself that credit. Maybe some people think I'm full of myself. I don't care. It's fine. But when I read the text, I read the text as I have my own methodology of trying to understand the text and Islamic concepts, and I try to apply those. And yeah, so that's why I'm still a Muslim. I mean, I can find justification, reasonable, sound, and not contradictory justification when I look at the text or the issue with what is being read.
I wonder if you're going to watch this show again in a year's time and wonder, what the hell was I saying? Okay, but never mind. If you come across somebody today who is a Muslim and who says, I am thinking about leaving, would you encourage or discourage them?
Well, it's I don't think I have the power to keep a person to be a Muslim or to drive them away from Islam. I think that's many factors influencing that person that I would have a very little influence on either or trajectory of their personal life.
Okay. I'm asking this question because I can never understand why it is that people who are obviously anti or not really pro gods or pro anything are being encouraged by Dawa Gandhis to join Islam. And I never understand the reasoning or the mentality behind this, because those are the most obvious who are going to leave again. This is why I'm
I mean,
asking.
I
I want to ask
totally
Veedu the same thing. Would he encourage or discourage? If somebody is not really sure if they're a good Muslim or want to be a Muslim, what's the point of keeping them there or trying to get them in there?
those Dawa videos, I really have an issue with those online Dawa videos. They are so ridiculous. And I mean, have you seen some of these videos? Like there's a bearded gentleman who goes up to a complete stranger and he has the microphone in a stranger's mouth, and he's pretty much saying this: say La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. Say it, say it, say it. It is so ridiculous. I mean, if it takes a person 1 minute to enter Islam and become a new Muslim, it will take them 1 minute to exit Islam and become an ex-Muslim, in my opinion. It's just so preposterous, so ridiculous. I think it has something to do with trying to get YouTube videos. I mean, I totally don't agree with the methodology of proselytization with some of these Salafi groups or these Dawah groups. I mean, it's very ridiculous. In my opinion, to me, it doesn't come across as humble or sincere. They say they're doing it for the sake of God, but I trust them. But to me, it's like it lacks some genuine sincerity, in my opinion.
And Veedu, do you understand this?
Did I understand?
I sorry. I think Abdul, the guy that you're referring to, my wife actually knows their family, and yeah. It is just sort of I think what you said is perfect. If it takes you 1 minute to enter, what makes you, what it will take you 1 minute to leave. You like, if it's so easy to do you like, okay, brother, so do you believe that someone created the universe? Because obviously not, anything that comes into existence must have a creator. Oh wow, that's amazing. Yeah, of course. Okay, so do you believe Jesus was a man, or do you think he was a god? Oh, he's a man. Oh, brother, you're basically Muslim. That's it. So I mean, that is the sort of psychological level that they're operating at. And sorry, go on.
Sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to say it just comes off so ridiculous to me. I mean, I cringe sometimes when I watch these Dawah videos.
It is cringe. It's 110% cringeworthy material, but unfortunately for the people that watch it, the Muslims, oh my God, mashallah, this is a miracle. This is the miracle of Islam. You only need to have a conversation with someone, and 5 minutes later, that's it, they're Muslim, and you've got extra reward and now you're guaranteed a garden in heaven.
Well, this is what I say. This is what I say. I'm like, if you require other people to believe in something to strengthen your belief, your entire belief system is resting on shaky foundations.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's why it comes off cringy to me, and I just don't understand. Like it just demonstrates how ignorant these so-called da'wah individuals are. I mean, if you look at the very basic concept of the shahada, or the testimony, the two testimonies, they don't even understand what it means. Yeah, I mean, like they literally go up to somebody and say, testify that Muhammad is the messenger of God, and testify that there is only one God and Allah is that God.
And welcome to the club.
They completely don't understand what that means. They think they treat the two testimonies as a talisman for salvation in the afterlife. When if you look at it from a classical Islamic understanding, the testimony is a testimony. It's an experienced testimony, not a literal testimony you repeat like a talisman, like abracadabra, hocus pocus, I'm in paradise. This is very stupid it shows a tremendous amount of ignorance to what Islam is and how it was once understood and how it's being practiced today, in my opinion.
Veedu, do you want to follow up on that?
Well, yeah, I mean, just like you're saying, it's just a numbers game. Do they really care if you get it? Do they really care if you know the ins and outs? And you like, I don't want to make Islam look bad. Like, for me, genuinely, I want Islam to look like what Islam is meant to look like. And if that is bad, then it's bad. If it's good, it's good. But there are some profound things in Islam, but they're not interested in exploring those. It's just a numbers game. They're not interested in having a genuine, nuanced discussion and saying, be careful about this, but we're not clear about. No, it's just, oh, brother, it's almost like this. I think a lot of these guys are salespeople, selling some sort of car insurance or something, and they're using those same techniques in selling their religion. And when I was Muslim, it really used to annoy me. I'm like, you have made Islam look so cheap by the way you're selling it. I mean, it just, they're not interested in, like, it's like, you asked earlier, you asked sorry, is it Abdul or
No, it's
Abdel, sorry, you asked Abdel, if someone's thinking of leaving Islam or whatever it is, or joining, which way would you push him, or would you like? I personally think it's I'm speaking as an ex-Muslim, it is such a big decision. For me, I would not push him towards ex-Muslim if he or she was not genuinely invested in that decision. For me, it is not a numbers game. This is not about, okay, now we've got one more, our team is getting bigger. I want quality. I want someone to be sincere. And honestly, if someone accepted Islam, like, if they really, like, I had someone, my friend, he became Muslim. It's funny because he became Muslim when I was Muslim, and then I left Islam. But anyway, and I actually helped him on that journey. But anyway, but if someone is sincere, and of course, if they're not a threat, I mean, assuming that is off the table, but if they're genuinely sincere and they're a good person, then fine. That's okay. I've got no problem with that, whether they leave or whether they join. I'm not interested in this sleazy salesman pitch type of conversations. Oh, you're really an atheist, or you're really a Muslim if you just do X, Y, and Z. I think I respect someone's intellect and the individual too much for those kind of games, and that's what really, really frustrates me with these people.
Yeah, it goes both ways. I mean, even within other Islamic circles, when an Islamic scholar deviates from the norm, he's attacked for having quote unquote unorthodox ideas. And I think that's a detriment to Islamic thought in the Muslim world. I think this is a hindrance because I guess there's a vested interest to maintain an echo chamber as much as you can humanly possibly can, at the detriment of Islamic societies themselves. This is what I perceive.
Well, I mean, that's the American scholar Bilal Phillips said that very openly. Normally we would have peer pressure or social pressure in keeping people within Islam, and whether it's an apostasy law or whatever it is. But now in the West, you don't have that, and people are leaving, and it's a problem. And the other guy admitted it as well. What's his name? Is it Qaddafi? Or I can't remember. I don't know if it was him or not. I don't want to misquote. But I think he was an Egyptian sheikh who said that, this may seem harsh, but could you imagine if there was no apostasy law, how many people would leave Islam? I mean, that is a massive own goal. You're just saying on TV that, guys, our idea isn't that great, but at least we got this thing we can hit people around the heads with, which keeps people in Islam. This, I mean, like I said, it's a numbers game. It is a pure numbers game.
I totally agree with you. I mean, they worry about the numbers. Like I said, if your ideology rests upon who accepts it and who's afraid to leave it, it rests on shaky grounds. I mean, if you look at the original Muslims in the 6th century, I mean, if you take a tally of how much there was, I would say there was a far more greater quality of Muslims back then versus today. We have a huge quantity, but I would argue we don't have good quality in the religious and in the non-religious department as well.
Okay, I want to welcome Hassan Yilmaz. who has asked to come on the panel here because he wants to contribute something towards the question of ex-Muslims. Welcome, Hassan.
Hi there. How are you? To be honest with you, I've got a pretty similar
Have you
experience.
muted yourself?
I think I might have. Can you hear me now?
Okay,
Yep.
we can't hear you.
I can.
Can you?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, to be honest with you, my experience is pretty similar to Veedu's.
I can't hear anything. Why can't I hear?
Can everyone hear me now? Can you press
I
the one
can.
if you can?
So how come you can hear and I can't?
This is the
That's
work
a
of
funny one.
Shaitan.
I don't know. To be honest with you, all I know is, can anyone hear me? Anyway, would you like me to reconnect? I don't want to be just plugging up your channel, just asking people if you can hear me or not.
I mean, I can hear you perfectly fine, man. Your voice is touching my heart.
Thank you. Thank you. Veedu, yeah, like we spoke previously before.
Yeah.
Sorry. Did someone want to?
No, go for it. Go for it. Go for it.
Well, I was going to say my experience with Islam had been, and still is, a beautiful thing. I mean, to its detriment, it's done, in my opinion, as learning to becoming an atheist. It's hard in retrospect, but held by force, which makes it that ugly thing. That's what my experience with being a Muslim, and the hardest part of it, and realizing it, was that, to be honest with you, that, you know, to the question that you asked.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Go for it.
And just further adding, there's the major contributor of why people are actually leaving Islam, and it's really, really, really sad to say this, but it's education. I mean, people are getting far more intelligent and far more to the point, realizing and coming to the understanding that there's a lot of things that contradict. I've heard this argument in Speaker's Corner and many other platforms that no, it's not, you know, Islam sort of like basically goes hand in hand with everything that society has given. And it's been proven, you know, through history that it hasn't. And, you know, they've got to own it. If you don't own it, it's just going to get worse for you. You know, it's, you know, everyone judges themselves far more harshly than what the actual people are going to judge you at. Do you understand me? It's history. It's the past, you know, it's just to turn a new leaf and to make best of it. But for some bizarre reason, you know, as in all religions, they just dig hills in and make it hard for themselves, and far more people leave. So, you know, it's sad, but it's just the way it is. You know, one's not going to bend. You've got to bend your will, as we know, it is in religions. And I'm not just going to say Islam, because it's throughout the range. Do you understand me? Some hold it more dear than others. Yeah, granted, but it's the same. It's exactly the same. I don't find no difference whatsoever.
Yeah, absolutely. There's not a lot of self-reflection, is there?
No, definitely not. Definitely not. Definitely.
You know, on the point of killing an apostate, you know, to me, it absolutely makes no sense why anybody would advocate it, or why would anybody think it's good from an Islamic perspective and from a historical Islamic perspective. I know some of the people in the audience are hearing this and they'll be like, oh, here's another watered down Muslim and a chocolate Muslim. But let me explain something. The killing of apostates during the time of the early Muslims, it's considered a justified act. Maybe you guys would want to hear why it's justified, or maybe not, but if one takes a look at the reasons to why early Muslims were killed by other Muslims versus the reasons why people think it's okay to kill Muslims today, it's night and day. It doesn't even relate. It makes no sense to implement this law on Muslims whatsoever. From a historical perspective, if you guys would like me to explain, I'll be more than willing to.
Go for it.
You guys, okay. When you look at the early Muslims, they participated in conquest campaigns with Muhammad. They learned warfare discipline, and they were able to extract tribute from other tribes, so on and so forth. When Muhammad died, some of these tribes that participated in these conquest campaigns rebelled. The early Muslims looked at these rebellious apostates as rogue elements from within their organization, from their kind. So it was like, think of it as a military having rogue units. They need to be destroyed. And if you look at it from that perspective and only that perspective, you can never apply it in this day and era. And this goes to many historical events that happened during the time of Muhammad and the early Muslims that you cannot reapply the conditions today. It's just a different world. It's a completely different world. The world has evolved. 1,400 years of history has come and gone. And for people to pretend that it hasn't, this is a fundamental issue that we deal with many Muslims today.
So true. Do you mind me adding one other thing as well to that, if I may? Do you also feel that it's a great way for basically stopping the rebellion of the people? I mean, to just keep that story as an additional bonus that you see, for example, if you got 100,000 people uprising, I mean, to kill 100 people and to execute them, to show them as an example of, look, if you do leave, this is what's going to happen. Trust me, I mean, history will rewrite history in the sense that, you know what, those that did leave, you know, it's best that if we just scrub these names out and put the ones that couldn't leave, to understand me, and show that, look, we've got you, you know, you live under our rule, you live under our paradise. And it's true what you're saying. It's hard to give that power up, something that you've established and put in place for the people to use. I mean, you've given them a system, and what they're basically doing, as we do in free society, is take that system and constantly evolve it. I mean, do you feel that's a comparison that comes true in that respect?
From what I gathered from what you were saying, is fundamentally it breaks down to freedom of action and freedom of speech. And, you know, I think, you know, Islam, to make sense, to make coherent sense, we need to have freedom of speech and freedom of action within the ideology. We need to have this more valued than constant capitulation and conformity. Like, I think I said this a couple of times on a few other shows, but I'll repeat myself. The headscarf, a woman is forced to wear the headscarf. In an Islamic society, the headscarf loses its meaning. The hijab needs a context of freedom of action and freedom of expression to make sense. If everybody wears the hijab like Saudi Arabia, the hijab loses its meaning. It needs to exist in contrast and in comparison to the women who choose not to wear it. So, you know, a lot of ideas that should make sense in Islam don't make sense in Islam because we have a group of people who propagate a totalitarian fascist ideology with Islam. And, you know, this is a major issue that many Muslim communities are unable to differentiate between fascist, totalitarian brand of Islam and what they pretend to be, which is true Islam, versus the people's right to interpret Islam and practice Islam the way they choose. Non-hierarchical, non-clerical, loosely organized people practicing Islam is the norm versus a centralized, monopolized interpretation of Islam exacting control over a given region.
But don't you feel that system is being put in by the same same thing that you're basically arguing for and against in a bizarre way. I mean, it's basically the same as us. I mean, we've taken democracy as a given. For example, we can't see today's kids living without such thing. It's the same, in my view, in regards to how people, because I've lived in a Muslim country for like a year and a half, and it's different. Like the system's different, you know, the work ethic's different, you know, everything is different. I mean, yeah, we're the same. We eat, we sleep, we shit, you know, we have sex and all the rest of that. But it's a different way. Like, for example, like the most basic example is like care homes. You know, you talk about a care home in an Islamic country, and it's like they look at you like as if you're from Mars or something. You know, like they don't get the concept of it. They get that there's people that come to the house and they look after the elderly, but it's not the same. Like, and because of democracy, you know, because we having to live in a capitalist state, you're put into that situation. You know, it's not because you want to, it's a needs must situation. And it's different over there. The needs must is that you look after your parent. You know, it's irrelevant if you got money, it's irrelevant if you haven't got money. You know, that's what you're going to do. You know, it's a different mindset. Like a woman, like for example, wearing the headscarf, like getting back to your, you know, getting back to your topic, it comes down to, it's what the neighbor wears, you know, it's what the lady down the road wears, it's what your teacher wore, it's what your aunties wore, you know, it's not something that's imposing in that sense. But in this country, it is, because we don't have people that are culturally accepting of the headscarf. Understand me? So these are just like minor details, but can also cause major divisions, you know, as we see in today's society. But it's true what you're saying in regards to that. The higher you go, you know, and the accepting norms of, you know, having to go from a hijab, or sorry, the headscarf, to the half veil and to the full veil, you know, these are things. And I don't know, maybe it might have to go total swing round and basically come back to having no headscarf, you know, like who knows? Like I can't see it going any further than what it is at the moment. I mean, I'm sorry to say, but it just looks like people walking around in bin bags. I mean, I know it sounds horrible, but I genuinely, you know, it's just not right. It's just not right, but it is right there. You know, they've accepted it. People have, you know, voiced their opinion, and that's what they want. And it's not for us to tell them, look, you can't do that, you can't do this. I'll back to you guys.
I mean, I understand what you're saying. Many Muslim countries, from my understanding, they suffer from what I like to call delusions of utopianism. You know, many of these countries, they're new nation states, and they gathered around ideas thinking that they can usher in a utopia. You know, but the traditional Islamic belief is to say utopia exists in the afterlife. But in this life, you know, nobody can try to convince me that they have a system of perfect management that will resemble paradise on earth. To me, this makes no sense. You know, for Muslims to be smart, they need to think that, you know, there is no such thing as a utopia on earth, and maybe the ills of socialism and national socialism in Muslim countries, and even Islamism, would be better mitigated if Muslims were able to comprehend this idea of nobody can make your life, you know, better for you.
Okay, before we go way off topic, Veedu, do you want to contribute to this, or should we go back to ex-Muslims?
I'm happy for the conversation to go anywhere. If you want to change it or keep it, I'm completely cool with that.
Because I can feel that we're drifting further and further away. So I would like to stay on the topic of ex-Muslims. Is there anything that either one of you three can see improve the situation for Islam, to make it more compatible with the 21st century, to make it more palatable for people today, to stop this watering down of Islam? Because I think, I personally, I need to prepare this video of how Islam is so weak that it is slowly. I mean, I've done the Islam is dying video, but I see that it's getting watered down further and further and further. Can anybody see an improvement in Islam? What it takes to stop this outpour of Muslims?
Yeah, three things I would recommend. I would recommend that Western countries ban any religious organization that's connected to Saudi Arabia and Iran. That's the first thing they should do. Any religious organization that's connected to Saudi Arabia and Iran, they need to ban it. A second thing they need to do is really curtail the social programs that many Western countries enjoy. Like, you have to be subsidized by the state to espouse the majority of these ideas, or you have to be living in poverty and you have nothing to do all day, and your idle hands are the hands of the devil, so to speak. That's another thing. A third thing is we need to bring Muslims, moderate Muslims, ex-Muslims, and even fundamentalist Muslims together, where they can talk like a non-governmental, but like a Congress, something that similar to what I see in the Jewish community. They have like a Congress where you have people from the Reform Orthodoxy or Reform Judaism, secular Jews, and even atheist Jews who come together and discuss about things. So this is what I would think would help the Muslim community in the West. As for the Muslim community in the Middle East and in Islamic countries, I guess they gotta wait for the Messiah to deal with their issues. But I mean, they need to rely less on government, in my opinion, in the Middle Eastern countries.
What about free speech? Do you think that is something that stops, or that somehow propagates ex-Muslims? Or do you think free speech makes an ex-Muslim?
What causes a Muslim to want to leave Islam, I think, is it boils down to a lot of factors. I wouldn't say it's because.
Okay, no, it was just a yes or no. I'm just curious if walls will prevent the outpour. Hassan and then Veedu. Hassan, what do you think can improve the situation for Islam?
To be honest with you, it might sound a little bit controversial, but I mean, the Old Testament is the reason why there's an Old Testament, and now there's a New Testament. And I genuinely believe if there's any chance for Islam to live in what we call so-called Western civilization, is that it just needs a New Testament. And just basically, I believe there's even a passage in the Qur'an that allows for the word to be changed, if society deems it. But unfortunately, the Conservatives have that one under lock and key for some bizarre reason. Another thing that can actually help Muslims sort of like come to it is having a more educational program for people that are wanting to come over. I mean,
okay,
for me to say it, but if I'm going to go to, for example, Italy, I'm going to want to know a little bit about Italy. I don't want to just go to Italy just to see what Italian soil looks like. I mean, they're going to need to do that. And thirdly, they've just got to accept whatever the nation is and truly accept it, for there to be any sort of civilization to be left there after they've left. So there's a few things that the Muslims need to do. And I'm not talking about the Muslims that have been here for eons and, are going to work and not sort of like plotting against the country. But that's me done. I don't want to be blabbering on.
Okay, Vidu, what do you think?
Yeah, I think what Abdul said earlier on about Iranian and Saudi sponsored or funded proselyte dawah. Let's put it that way.
Proselytizing, yeah.
Proselyte, yes, well, I can't get out of my mouth. That kind of stuff needs to be cracked down upon. Listen, I'm all for free speech, but if you believe that certain groups are funding or encouraging sort of separatist sort of kind of or parallel legal systems or uh, funding terrorism or violence, then that needs to be dealt with without any sort of dilly-dally sort of attitude. Very clear cut, these are our values. You cannot advocate for a separate system in this country. You cannot subvert the very foundation of the country by advocating for a theocracy. Secondly, I don't know. I think it may get worse before it gets better. And one of the indicators of that is, for example, Imran Khan, the newly elected prime minister in Pakistan. I genuinely thought this guy, listen, if we ever had an opportunity in Pakistan to turn things around, and we may still turn things around he might reduce poverty, he might he might reduce corruption somewhat here and there. But on a macro scale, if we were going to change the way we think, right, not just change administrations a bit better, but change the way we think as Muslims, I thought this was the guy. He's Western educated. He spent a lot of time in the West, in the UK. He even married a Jewish woman that's pretty open-minded. He got a lot of stick for that. He was called very publicly and many times, and even still today, he's called the son of a Jew because he married, even though he's divorced from her. It's not something which is a normal Pakistani, a very traditional Pakistani would do. Go out of their comfort zone, marry a white girl, Jewish girl from a rich Jewish family. Went to Oxford. He was a known playboy. So he had all these sort of things that took him outside of the box. So if there was ever going to be someone who's going to quote unquote reform or at least curb the level of radicalization and this sort of frenzy people get, when it comes to blasphemy and apostasy, if there was ever someone, it would be him. But when he comes out and supports the blasphemy law and calls for and calls for the Muslim world, the OIC, the Organized International, whatever it's called, Organized Islamic Community or Committee, whatever, to impose basically an Islamic, to impose an international blasphemy law, and Europe should know its role and not insult the Prophet because it's very. When he does that, I don't know who to look for anymore. I don't, I wish you could point me to another leader of any other major Muslim country who is well educated, who is not a secular dictator, who's democratically elected and says, you know what, maybe we should rethink the blasphemy law, maybe we should rethink the apostasy law. Because I thought he was the guy. I really thought he was the guy, and he has really let me down, really dropped the ball on this one. And which is why it hurts even more. But that's why it's even more worrying, because he's not a mullah with a beard. He's not, what do you want to call it? Some guy who's, studied in a madrasa, who's basically married to his cousin. He's the complete opposite of that. He could have had a very comfortable life living in the UK. Had many women, beautiful women around him, money, but he chose that life. So I respect him for that, and he's very determined, disciplined. He's very good at what he does. But when he comes out with these views, where do we go now?
Did you tell him?
I wish I could.
When is your channel going to have the impact that you can?
Man, I'm telling you, I'm releasing a video on this guy, and I genuinely am bitterly disappointed, because I am such an Imran Khan fan in terms of his cricket, in terms of humanitarian work. He was the first guy to build a cancer hospital in Pakistan, and the government was against him. And this cancer hospital is for the poor and needy. It pretty much is run on donations, and if you can't afford it, then you don't have to pay. I mean, this is a guy with a vision, a guy that can do stuff. He's not just some. I mean, he's a populist, but he's actually done stuff. He's got a very good track record. He's got international appeal. He speaks English well. I know this sounds very basic, but in Pakistan, that's a very big thing. So, he ticks all the boxes you could possibly imagine. He ticks them. But when it comes to, for some reason, Islam and this thing, I don't know what's going on. I mean, if you look at his wives, this is, again, maybe below the belt, and I apologize in advance, but his first wife was Jemima, Jewish. Second wife was a Pakistani Muslim. She was a bit crazy, but nevertheless, she wore like there's a picture with the first Jemima in like a skirt, second one, Reham wearing a shalwar kameez, and the third one in a niqab. So I don't know if he's become gradually more religious, or the women in his life are pulling him one way or the other. But I just don't know. I honestly don't know.
Okay, guys, we've got 20 minutes left. I'm going to ask people if you want to ask questions. Now, what I have deliberately not done is go into the text. I have not gone and found the Quranic sentences and the hadiths and things like. We've made a very short reference to them, but today is about personal experience, and this is why I want to say thank you so much to Veedu, Abdel, and Hassan that they came on and gave us their personal impression of what it means to be an ex-Muslim in today's environment and today's society and in the 21st century. So if somebody wants to ask questions regarding ex-Muslims, regarding, and I know I hate the word apostasy, leaving Islam, what is it, aborting and treasoning and all these other things, then please ask questions. And I can see they're starting already, so I'll have to take notes here. Otherwise, just go for it. Ask Hassan to talk about what leaving Islam in the UK in the 80s was like. Hassan, what was it like in the 80s when you left Islam?
Sorry, I just want to say one thing. I'm not an ex-Muslim.
Actually, it's true. It's true. So if you want, well, you are so like different in your opinions and the way that you talk that actually I don't consider you like a mullah with a beard either. So sorry, Abdel. So if anybody wants to ask our ex-Muslims and our remaining Muslim on the panel what they think about ex-Muslims, then please go ahead. Hassan, let's start with you. What was it like leaving Islam in the 80s?
I'll tell you, for me, it was an extremely hard decision. I could tell you in the 80s, there was, in my community, a heavy Muslim presence. Even though they were secular, to say the least, to say that you didn't believe in a God was, I don't know, it was the kind of thing that absolutely smashed your mother's heart into a million little pieces. I know that was really hard. And as well as that, I found when I did leave in the 80s, because I was sort of like left late 80s, so to speak, it was a wrench from the family. As I said, no one threatened to kill me. Do you understand me? There was none of that kind of behavior. But you weren't seen as you was the day before, if that makes any sense at all. And as well as that, there's certain things that you're not privy to. For example, to the ones that were in that community, and rightfully so as well. I mean, it would have made no sense, sort of like leaving the camp and still getting the update, so to speak. But I remember it was hard, and as well as that, then I wasn't gifted enough in the sense that I was brought up in a community where there was a majority secular community. That our one was pretty tight knit as it was then, and not so much now. So I mean, unless you want me to add on to that, I'd be happy to answer.
Yeah, there's two add-ons. How has the Muslim community evolved since Imran Khan and since Salman Rushdie?
I've noticed one thing that's constant with the religion. No matter how much it takes beating, so to speak, it always gets stronger, because that is quite a lengthy example, but because of the rights of the woman, in the sense, I'll try to keep it short in regards to that. And in regards to Salman Rushdie, I've noticed that it's getting more dominant, and since Imran Khan is trying to be more accepting, I was never a great. I'm sorry, Vidu, but I was never a great fan of Imran Khan. I mean, to be honest with you, he never did ring my bells in regards to that. Yeah, he was a great cricketer, hands down. I'm not going to say nothing negative about that, but as a husband, he was shit. As a playboy, I don't want to sound nasty, but bigging up what a playboy life is, it's what's he doing? He's using, abusing women. I mean, let's be honest, and abusing himself as well. I mean, I'm a quite firm believer that.
Okay, what about Salman Rushdie?
Salman Rushdie, I think at that time, I think Islam showed its dark side to today's society. I feel that's what that did at that time. I mean, and as well, and the bizarrest thing was it was getting love from the left for doing it, which was just horrendous. I mean, I don't know if you know, I'm a total free speech advocate. I mean, totally. I think it's better to be this. At least you can then be identified to being that person. Do you understand me? Instead of having to, in today's society, just basically play the game. Don't say nothing. You know, don't put a wrong foot out, and you'll be all right. Do you understand me? So,
okay, thank you. Vidu, have you ever done Sam Harris?
Could you give a bit more? What do you mean done him? Like a
Impression.
Oh, impression. Astaghfirullah. Okay, I haven't, but because his voice is. Sorry,
I didn't know that you could be shocked.
Listen, you never know some of the questions that come out, man. You've got to, make sure you get, whatever. People ask all sorts of questions. I haven't done him because I find his voice very hard to do because it's very monotonous and very calm and almost zen. Like I couldn't even. I don't even know where. Maybe I should listen to him more and try. But he's very it's easier to do voices that are a bit quirky because then you can exaggerate it. But it's hard to exaggerate a very monotone, calm voice.
Okay.
But no, I haven't tried him yet.
What about your upcoming meeting with Abu Laith?
Yeah, so that's in the pipeline. We haven't got a date set up yet, but he's he's been very open and forthcoming, and I'm looking forward to that discussion. It'll be interesting discussion. I think it'll be more of a discussion than a debate because I think we actually agree with a lot of stuff. If I'm being honest with you, there's not much. There are small disagreements and there's more agreements, if that makes sense. So we'll see what happens. Are
you going to be more controversial?
I think, and I'll be honest with you, and I really respect him for agreeing, is that he will get more stick than me because he's already got a lot of stick from his own sort of Muslim, whether it's the Sufis, the Salafis, or whoever you want to call it.
But for the wrong reasons.
He's got a lot of stick from them because he's challenging all the hadiths, he's challenging the status quo, and he's doing it in a way where he's laughing and he's chilled, he's not getting worked up over it, and these guys are pulling their beards out, and he's like, why can't we just nail this guy? So he's getting a lot of stick for just doing that. Now, if he interviews or speaks to an ex-Muslim, oh my God, what is this guy doing? If he's not trying to convert me, why are you giving me credibility? Okay. So I genuinely respect anyone who's up for a discussion, who's up for genuine dialogue. And for me, I'm just excited. For me, yes, it's all, there's always a show, like sort of show business side to, okay, we're going to have cameras and debate and this and that. But I just genuinely want to meet the guy the same way I wanted to meet Shabir Ali and just have a chat. That's the attitude I'm having. Or I would have when I speak to him. Just I want to have a chat with him and see what happens, and hopefully people enjoy it.
Absolutely, I'm sure we will, because I think he's a very interesting person. I still think that he has a lot of Muslim left in him, but it is a different attitude. Like Abdel is saying as well, you can't have this 7th century Muslim attitude today and there are like far and few between, I think, anyway. So I think this is going to be brilliant. And I like your attitude that you are going to do these things and have a conversation with the people and show that even if you are an ex-Muslim, you can ask good questions and you can appreciate if somebody is honest and has an attitude where it's not really about being a Muslim or something. It's just what you make of it. And I think this is the important part.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ansar, welcome. I've got a general question, so let me start this off with you. Seeing that we have only ex-Muslims and one remaining Abdel Muslim left in the panel. So, Ansar, what is a real Muslim, and why are ex-Muslims never one of those?
Yeah, hi Stops. Hi everyone.
How's it going?
Yeah, basically it's a really silly question, to be honest, because we've all faced it, we've all come across it. It's basically the no true Scotsman fallacy, and they define a true Muslim, as someone who will always remain a Muslim, because obviously if you ever knew the truth, you couldn't then deny the truth, could you?
Were you a real Muslim?
Yeah, as far as I can tell. I was born in a Muslim family. I was given a Muslim name. I saw myself as a Muslim for my whole life until I was about 15. I read Arabic every day for 2 hours a day for about 7 years. I prayed, not every day or 5 times a day, but we had to pray whenever my parents, suddenly had a pang of guilt about it and started to get religious with us. We fasted every year. We did Eid prayers and Eid and all, we took part in probably most of the things that most people who are Muslims do. So I can't think of any reason that I wasn't a Muslim, because it was a big part of my life, whether I liked it or not, and whether I accepted it or not. I mean, I didn't have a choice as a child. So I know I was a Muslim. I can still recite probably 2 or 3 surahs just because they're practically embedded in my brain since those child days, like over 25 years ago. So yeah, I know that I was a Muslim as much as probably half of the Muslims in the world, at least. And I think it's a ridiculous thing to say that we were never real Muslims. It is literally just the no true Scotsman fallacy, and it's quite pathetic that they always end up saying that. I mean, people say, "Oh, do you know the 6 articles? Do you know the 5?" And I'm like, I did know them once, but I'm not. I've decided not to waste my brain space with useless rubbish. So if I don't know them now, it doesn't really prove anything. I've been a non-Muslim for 25 years, so I mean, it's a silly thing to bring up.
What I'd like to do is get the other panel members to just give their opinion on this question, and then I'd like to come back to Ansar again to ask him what is his opinion on ex-Muslims and what could be better in Islam to keep people in the fold. Who wants to start? Abdel, would you want to start on why is it that ex-Muslims are never perfect or were never real Muslims?
I don't believe that whatsoever.
Okay, thank you very much. Next. Carry on.
Yes, no, I believe that they were Muslims. They were part of the community that participated in many rituals, like the other gentleman was saying. What causes them?
He's not a gentleman.
Who?
Ansar is not a gentleman.
He's not?
No, definitely.
I don't know. He sounds very nice to me.
Oh, mate, you don't know what you're talking about. You really don't know what you're talking about.
Sure.
Okay, I'm sorry. Carry on.
I don't know. I guess I need to come on the show a little more often, and then I'll understand what the inside joke is. He sounds like a heartless guy all of a sudden. Yeah, no. I think what causes people to leave Islam is essentially an intellectual dissatisfaction, and I think this is the main reason. And I can understand that, and I believe at the end of the day, everybody has their own path, and everybody will walk that path, and it's their life journey. And I wish them the best of luck. And I do wish that Muslim community was a little less squeamish about interactions with ex-Muslims. I honestly think we could become better Muslims by hearing them out, because they don't they don't serve any threat. They don't pose anything that could harm the Muslim community. I think ostracizing ex-Muslims is more a detriment to the Muslim community.
Okay. But do you agree that there is no such thing as a real Muslim?
No such thing as a real Muslim. No, I think there is such a thing as a real Muslim. And if a Muslim was really concerned about their personal Islam, they would not be fazed by somebody that leaves Islam.
I think we should have a whole show on what is a real Muslim, because I've heard so many opinions and most of them say there is no such thing. And now you are, Kian, saying, yep, there is. So this is actually, okay, so we're not going to go into that. Hassan, what is your opinion on why there is no real Muslim in ex-Muslims?
I don't believe that to be the case, to be honest with you. I definitely think there's real Muslims, and I definitely think there's ex-Muslims. To be honest with you, I don't know what to say in regards to that. I mean,
it's just a knee-jerk reaction then.
Well, you either or not, so to speak. I mean, to go to somebody and tell them that they're not a Muslim when they're going to the mosque and they're fasting and they're praying their 5 zakats, like 5 prayers a day, and then eating halal food, and what could you call that person? And he's pious and he's humble and he's doing the right thing. How is he not a Muslim?
Okay. Yeah, I understand that. Veedu, would you agree with that? Because my take is that every Muslim thinks they are a real Muslim, doing the best they can and doing all the efforts and doing everything. So to them, I think they're real Muslims. What do you think?
Yeah, I think there's maybe a slight misunderstanding. Like, I actually agree with both. Abdul, Hassan, and I agree with Ansar. I agree with all of what they're saying. I think there's a bit of a confusion, and this, like you said, you might need a whole show in this. Define what a real Muslim is, and then let's have a discussion: does one exist or not? But we hear this argument a lot from people who have this sort of defensive attitude when they see ex-Muslims. Oh, you were never really a Muslim. They ask you, oh, were you Sunni or Shia? And if they are Sunni and you say Shia, oh, well, there you go, isn't it? Because, you didn't really see the real Islam, therefore, no wonder you've left it. But if you say, oh, okay, I was Sunni, I was this, I was that, oh, then it's emotional. Oh, then it's this. Oh, you were never really. Anything to deflect criticism from Islam and to lay the blame at someone else or something else. This is a tactic which we've heard many times before. And you know what? How many fake ex-Muslims are there? Fine, you might be. I mean, I'm sure I actually know there are some fake ex-Muslims. Remember that guy, that Turkish guy used to come on YouTube, the Dr. Crane Ergun, whatever his name is. He was like, oh, I was, you used to read the Quran, and he couldn't even speak a word of Arabic, whatever. That guy's a fake ex-Muslim. Are you saying that everyone that leaves Islam is a fake ex-Muslim? Are you going to accept no responsibility for the fact that people are leaving your religion? This is a defeatist and sort of pathetic attitude. And the more they do this, the more it's going to bite them in the ass. But yeah, I mean, this whole no true Scotsman fallacy. I mean, if I wasn't a Muslim, then I used to practice the same Islam as my family, who used to practice the same Islam as their community, who used to practice the same Islam as everyone in their city. So the whole of Lahore isn't Muslim either. So it's not just because I'm doing exactly what everyone else around me was doing. So you can't just say I'm not the real one, but they are, because we were doing exactly the same things. Yes. And this is what I was speaking to my friend. Sorry, I didn't mean to go off on one. He was saying, he was from a Sufi background, and I asked him about Dawah, man. I said as a joke, oh, he's your Muslim brother, and he goes, no, he's not. I said, what do you mean? I said, what do you mean? Obviously, he doesn't like Dawah, man. I said, well, what do you mean he's not? He goes, well, I don't consider him Muslim. And I was like, hang on. I mean, fine, he's a bit of a goof, and fine, he's whatever, but he's still a Muslim. And then, you can't say he's not a Muslim. You can't excommunicate him because he's an idiot. You are allowed to be an idiot and a Muslim at the same time. Because no, he has a different Aqidah, he has a different this, he has a different that. So I asked him, if someone converted to Islam, who had the similar beliefs as Dawah man, right, as there are many people converted to Islam with that belief, would you consider them Muslim? And vice versa. I asked our man because he doesn't like the Sufis. So it's the fastest growing religion, but no one seems to be Muslim because depending on who you ask, they're not a real Muslim. So please tell me.
May I correct that, please? May I correct that, please?
Go for
The
it.
fastest growing group of religions is atheism, and it's not to be counted as a religion.
Yeah,
but, it's the
but I'm just
growing.
simply telling what they would. Yeah, of course.
Let's get that one in there because I'm kind of sick to death with this narrative that.
I'm not saying I agree with that, but I'm saying usually they say it's the fastest. Okay, so which part of it is the fastest? Because depending on who you ask, they all either have the wrong akida, the wrong belief, the deviance, or this or that. So you know who is Muslim? You, just you as an individual, and maybe your sheikh. Other than that, everyone's bloody deviant. So you know, yeah, exactly.
This is what ISIS espouses. This is what Taliban and Osama bin Laden and the Algerian Islamic Liberation Front espouses. So this is it's always going to lead to a bad path. To judging another person's Islamic values, to the point where you denounce them, and they're still Muslims, let alone you openly say, I'm walking away from the religion. This is something I need to do more research and try to figure out where it originated from, where.
Okay,
final question, please. Sorry,
yeah, go for it.
Can anyone remember the time when it followed with a question after "Are you a Muslim?" to being "Are you a Sufi Muslim, a Sunni Muslim, or the other variants?" Because I remember a time when all you said is "Are you a Muslim?" There was not a one where you go "Are you a Sunni Muslim? Are you a Salafi Muslim?" I mean, when did that happen? Because I must have missed that part.
I think that happened right after 1979, the Islamic Revolution in Iran, when the Shias took over Iran and established Walaya al-Faqih. It really made Saudi Arabia uncomfortable that it had a competing theocracy in the Middle East. And this is when Salafi da'wah operations began. I mean, it's reactionary to the Islamic revolution of Iran. And ever since then, the sectarianism in the Middle East and all over the world has been intensifying. I mean, when I was growing up, that question never, ever came. That was the most foreign question ever, to identify yourself in different sects and different aqidah. I would say this is the last 10 years, and it's been only getting intensified.
Okay, final question from me before we wrap it up here. This is to everybody except Abdel, of course. All right. I'm sorry, Abdel. I'm taking you out of this one. It's to everybody else. Is there anything that you can think of that would make you go back into Islam?
No.
Do you want to put a bit more on that?
I thought that would suffice. I mean,
yes, that suffices. I just wanted to know, is there anything, if you say no, you don't have to qualify it?
Because I thought about this a long time, and people have asked, and I thought, what can I get from Islam that I cannot get from anywhere else? Okay, fine. Put aside the whole, wife beating nonsense and all the sort of corporal punishment. Put all that nonsense to aside. If you're talking about spirituality, or if you get some sort of peace when you pray or something like that, then you can get. You can pray. You can also meditate. You can do all sorts of things. I listen to certain types of music which put me at ease or calm me down or whatever it is. And by the way, I actually happen to understand that music. It's not in a foreign language which I don't understand. So then, if it's a sense of community, then go to a mosque. I can go to a mosque without being a Muslim. I can go to a church. I can go to a flat earth society and feel part of a community. So anything you want within, it's not only Islam, but anything you want within an organized religion, I think you can get from outside. So there's nothing specific or unique within that religion that I can only get from there that I can't get from anywhere else. That's why I say no. That's not to say that, I mean, if I go to mosque, I mean, I still go to mosque when I have to pray Eid prayer, because it's a family thing. Me, my father, my brother go, we whatever pray, and that's fine. It's just a family thing. But I don't see why I can't get that if we go to a music concert and listen to some classical Pakistani music. In fact, it'll be more enjoyable and probably more bonding. But there you go.
Okay, answer.
Yeah, I thought I understood the question slightly differently. Did you ask, would it be possible for me to ever go back to Islam?
Can you think of anything that would make you?
Yeah, of course. Rob asked me this question on his show the other day, and it simply comes down to this: I care about what's actually and demonstrably true. So if somebody could actually demonstrate Islam to be true, I would go with it, but that would have to be in some tangible way. But yeah, I'm open to it in principle. Yeah, but
I hate you. You're so rational and logic. It's terrible.
Well, I learned from the best stops. I've been on your show for a while now.
That's it. That's it. You reap what you sow, man. You reap what you sow.
Hassan?
Yeah, there's a few things that I think I would return back to the fold for. One, if Islam was the only dominating religion and it was a case of needs must, and two, going back to what Answer's view was in regards to if it could be categorically proven, that would definitely bring me back to the fold. And I think if three would be a possibility as well, if what they claim to be the Sharia actually worked and basically did solve world problems and did good in society without persecuting others, I would say that would bring me back into the fold.
Okay, that's good. Yeah. Okay. All right, then let's wrap it up. Abdel, I've kept you out of this. Is there anything, and the others, of course, but let's start with Abdel. Is there anything that I haven't asked that you would like people to know?
Yes. I don't know. No, I'm good. I'm good with the show. I think it was a very nice show. I enjoyed my Friday afternoon with you guys. I think Wiso wants me to read this verse, so I'm just gonna read it. I hope it's not taken as a side jab.
No, but no, but I didn't want to go into the Quran this time.
Okay, fine. That's okay. I'll leave it for another show.
Can I request a favor from your audience, please?
Sure.
Is there any chance that we could ask people to come down this Sunday, show your support? It's going to be quite a big event. I'm sorry if I'm plugging this. Please do tell me to stop if you feel it's necessary. Tan's going to make a huge announcement if anyone hasn't heard. And basically, it's just a call for support, be it from the religion of peace or be it from any other. Thank you very much.
Okay, guys, you heard the man. If you don't have anything better planned for Sunday, is it Sunday? Speaker's Corner, is that the date and venue?
Please, 2 o'clock.
2 o'clock, Speaker's Corner, London. If you're within 200 miles, go take a trip down to Speaker's Corner. Okay, Answer Veedu. Answer's chatting, I think.
No, I'm here, mate.
Okay. Anything I left out that you want people to know?
No, there's one thing I could point out. A lot of people in the chat seem to think that we leave Islam or disagree with Islam for emotional, personal reasons. And that's really not it. From probably 99% of ex-Muslims I've met, they genuinely left Islam because there's no good reason to think it's true. And that's an intellectual reason, not an emotional one.
That's true. Veedu, what about you? Anything else?
Yeah, I just want to say, shout out to everyone who's been on the show. Please support Jinn&Tonic. They do a fantastic job of having open conversation. And I will be releasing a video on Imran Khan and what I think of the whole blasphemy nonsense.
Yeah.
Either today or tomorrow or maybe on Monday. So, yeah, man, let's just see what happens. And, thanks for watching.
Okay, thank you, guys. And if you would, please give us a like. This increases our distribution range. Thank you very much to the panel. Thank you. Like it's brilliant. Without you guys, this this would not be possible. And just me sitting here and holding a monologue is not really a lot of fun. So what we're going to do is just open up the discussion for everybody now. I'm just going to put it into the chat so that if anybody wants to join, I'm going to stop the normal broadcast now. Thank you very much, everybody, and see you next week on the Gin and Tonic Show. Friday evening. Good night, everybody. Bye-bye. And if you want to stay on for the after show if you want to enjoy further